White horse saves girl from a lake full of alligators. You won't believe what happens next. A child escapes death when a white horse appears out of nowhere and confronts alligators to save her. But what no one expected was that the animal knew secrets from the girl's past. He takes her to a forbidden place where her parents disappeared years ago, and what she finds there changes everything the community believed to be true. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us which city you're watching from. We continue. I promise this will be the best story you'll ever hear in your life. The suffocating afternoon hung over the small riverside community of Willow Creek like a thick blanket of humidity and silence. The leaves of the maple trees hung motionless, and even the wind seemed to have forgotten to blow in this forgotten corner of rural America. It was in these moments of absolute quietude that the waters of the lake seemed to awaken from an ancient sleep, reflecting not only the leaden sky, but secrets that time had deposited in its depths. Emily ran along the muddy trail leading to the lake, her rubber sandals making muffled sounds against the damp earth. At 12 years old, she carried on her thin shoulders a weight that no child should bear, the loneliness of someone who grew up being seen as different, as a living omen of things the community preferred to forget. Her curly hair stuck to her sweaty face as she fled from the cruel laughter of the village boys, who had once again mocked her mysterious origins. Grandma Martha, the woman who had raised her since she was a baby, always warned her never to approach the lake alone. "Those waters hold more than fish, child," she would say with eyes full of ancient and painful wisdom. "There are things down there that are better left sleeping." But that afternoon, with her heart wounded by the words of her peers, Emily needed a place where she could cry in peace, away from curious glances and the whispers that always followed her along the dirt roads. The lake stretched before her like a dark mirror, its waters so calm they seemed solid. Century-old trees curved over the surface, creating dancing shadows that moved even without a breeze. Emily sat on a rock at the shore, wiping away tears with the back of her hand. It was then that she heard the first sound, a distant whinny, melancholic like a lament. Among the trees, a white figure moved with supernatural grace. It was a horse, the most beautiful Emily had ever seen, with fur as white as snow that she only knew from school books. Its eyes were dark and deep, carrying an intelligence that went beyond animal instinct. The horse approached the shore with careful steps, as if it knew every stone, every root that hid in the irregular terrain. Emily remained motionless, fascinated by the majestic presence of the animal. She had never seen that horse in the region, and by the well-groomed appearance of its mane and the shine of its coat, it certainly wasn't a wild animal. There was something familiar in those eyes, as if she already knew it from somewhere lost in memory. It was then that she heard desperate cries coming from the other side of the lake. A child's voice called for help, choked by the water that was already beginning to invade the lungs. Emily jumped up, trying to locate the source of the sounds. In the center of the lake, she could see only a small head fighting against the treacherous waters, small arms frantically beating, trying to stay afloat. Without thinking twice, Emily ran toward the water, but her legs trembled, and she knew she wasn't a good swimmer. Panic took hold of her chest when she realized she couldn't get therein. Time to save whoever it was. That's when the white horse did something extraordinary. The animal plunged into the dark waters with a determination that defied all logic. Its powerful legs cut through the surface of the lake as it swam toward the drowning child. Emily watched open-mouthed as the horse reached the boy and, with impressive gentleness for an animal of its size, allowed him to grab onto its mane. Slowly, it began to swim back to shore, carrying the small body to safety. Meanwhile, Emily noticed something that made her blood freeze in her veins. Around the horse and the child, dark shapes emerged from the depths. Huge alligators, with eyes that shone like small yellow lanterns, broke the surface of the waters. For a moment that seemed eternal. The reptiles remained motionless as if assessing the situation. Then, inexplicably, they began to retreat, submerging again into the deep waters, as if they had encountered something that intimidated them. The horse reached the shore and gently deposited the boy on the damp earth. It was Tommy, son of the fisherman Jack, an 8-year-old boy who was always playing pranks on adults. This time his mischief had almost cost him his life. He coughed violently, expelling the dark lake water, but he was alive and conscious. "Thank you," muttered Tommy between coughs, looking at the horse with a mixture of gratitude and amazement. The animal remained there for a few moments, as if it wanted to make sure the child was really safe. Its eyes then turned to Emily, and for a brief moment she had the strange feeling that the horse knew her, that this encounter was not a coincidence. Voices approached along the trail. Jack and other men from the village were running toward the lake, alerted by the cries for help. Emily waved to them, signaling that Tommy was safe, but when she turned again to where the horse had been, it had disappeared. Only a few footprints in the wet mud attested that its presence had not been a figment of imagination. "Oh my God, Tommy!" Jack hugged his son tightly, his trembling hands checking if he was hurt. "What were you doing alone at the lake? You know it's dangerous." "Was a white horse, Dad," said Tommy, still panting. "It saved me. It swam to me and brought me to shore." The men exchanged skeptical looks. There were no white horses in the region, much less horses that would swim to save children. Jack looked at Emily, who confirmed with a timid nod. "It's true, Mr. Jack. I saw everything. The horse appeared out of nowhere and saved Tommy." Mr. Wilson, the oldest man in the group, frowned and stared at the calm waters of the lake. "White horse," he muttered to himself, as if those words awakened some old memory. "It's been a long time since I've heard talk of a white horse around these parts." The group returned to the village carrying Tommy, who needed medical attention. Emily followed them in silence, but her mind was buzzing with questions. Where had that horse come from? Why had the alligators retreated before it? And most importantly, why did she feel that this encounter would change her life forever? That night, lying in the hammock on the porch of the stilt house where she lived with Grandma Martha, Emily couldn't stop thinking about what had happened. The full moon reflected in the river waters that flowed beneath her house, creating a silvery path that seemed to lead directly to the mysterious lake. "Grandma Martha," she called softly, using the affectionate name she had adopted for the woman who had raised her. "What is it, child? Have you ever seen a white horse around here?" Grandma Martha stopped rocking in her wicker chair. Emily couldn't see her face in the darkness, but she noticed the tension that took hold of the older woman's body. "Why are you asking that, child?" Emily told her about Tommy's rescue, about the mysterious appearance of the horse, and about how the alligators had retreated before it. As she spoke, she noticed that Grandma Martha became increasingly restless. "Listen carefully to what I'm going to tell you, Emily," said the woman with a grave voice. "There are things in this world that don't have easy explanations, things that connect the past to the present in ways that our small minds can't understand. If you really saw this horse, then it's a sign that time is moving again." "What time, Grandma?" Grandma Martha rose from her chair and went into the house without answering. Emily heard the sound of drawers being opened and papers being moved. When the woman returned, she had in her hands an old photograph yellowed by time. In the image, a young man and a woman smiled at the camera, and in the background, clearly visible, was a white horse identical to the one Emily had seen at the lake. "Who are these people, Grandma?" Grandma Martha sighed deeply before answering, and her voice carried the weight of years of guarded silence. "They're your parents, child, and that horse belonged to your father." The photograph trembled between Emily's fingers like a dry leaf in the wind. 12 years of life, and it was the first time she had seen her parents' faces, the first time she had a concrete image of those who had given her life. The man in the photo had her same brown eyes and gentle smile, while the woman had identical, curly hair to hers. But it was the horse in the background of the image that made her heart race. "Why did you never show me this before, Grandma?" asked Emily, her voice choked with emotion. Grandma Martha sat back down in the wicker chair, the creaking of the wood echoing through the silent porch. The moonlight fell on her wrinkled face, revealing tears she hadn't shed in a long time. "Because I thought it would be better that way, child. Some truths are too heavy for small shoulders to bear." She paused, observing the dark waters of the river. "Your parents disappeared in a terrible storm when you were just 6 months old. It was the most violent storm this region has ever seen. Winds that knocked down century-old trees, rain that transformed the lake into a turbulent sea." Emily held the photograph carefully, as if it were a fragile treasure that could disintegrate at any moment. And the horse, what happened to it? Thunder was his name. Your father, Michael, loved him more than anything in the world, after your mother of course. He said Thunder was special, that he understood things that other animals didn't understand. Grandma Martha sighed deeply. On the night of the storm, they went out together. Michael, your mother, Claire, and Thunder. They never returned. After 3 days of searching, we found only you alone in the house crying in your crib. The older woman's words fell on Emily like stones. Her whole life had been built on emptiness, on questions never asked and answers never given. Now, discovering that her parents hadn't simply left, but had disappeared in mysterious circumstances, stirred something deep in her chest. But then, the horse that saved Tommy. It might be the same one, child. It might not be. There are things in this life that defy our understanding. Grandma Martha extended her hand and gently touched the girl's face. What I can tell you is that your family always had a special connection with the waters of this place. Your great-grandfather was known for being able to predict storms just by observing the lake. Your grandfather said he could talk to the fish, and your father had dreams. What kind of dreams? Dreams of the bottom of the lake, of ancient things buried down there. He said he saw an entire city under the water, with houses, streets, people who lived long ago. Grandma Martha shook her head. I thought they were just a boy's fantasies. But as he grew up, the dreams became more intense. He began to draw maps, make notes, talk about a treasure hidden at the bottom of the waters. That night, Emily couldn't sleep. She stayed in the hammock looking at the photograph, trying to memorize every detail of her parents' faces. When sleep finally came, it brought vivid and strange dreams. She saw herself walking on the bottom of the lake, breathing water as if it were air, passing by submerged houses covered in silt and algae. And always, in the background of the dreams, she heard the familiar neighing of a horse. She woke with the first light of day, her heart racing and the strange feeling that the dreams were more than a product of her imagination. She dressed quickly and left the house before Grandma Martha woke up. She needed to go back to the lake, needed to understand what was happening. The morning was fresh and humid, with a light mist hovering over the water. Emily walked along the shore looking for signs of the horse's presence the night before. It was then that she found something that made her blood quicken. Footprints in the mud, too large to be from any ordinary horse, and beside them, partially buried in the sand, a metallic object. It was an ancient medallion, darkened by time and humidity. Emily cleaned it carefully with the hem of her shirt and almost cried out in surprise. Engraved on the surface of the metal was the same symbol that appeared in the drawings her father had left, a circle intertwined with wavy lines that seemed to represent water in motion. You found it. Emily turned around, startled. Tommy was behind her, still in clothes damp with dew, his eyes fixed on the medallion in her hands. Tommy, you scared me. What are you doing here so early? I couldn't sleep, said the boy, approaching slowly. I kept thinking about the horse that saved me. It was as if it knew me, you know? As if it wasn't the first time it had seen me. He pointed to the medallion. And now you find this. It can't be a coincidence. Emily looked again at the object in her hands. The metal was still warm, as if it had been used recently. Tommy, can I trust you? Of course you can. You helped me yesterday. Actually, if it weren't for you yelling for my dad, maybe no one would have known I was in the lake. I didn't yell for your dad, said Emily, frowning. When I saw you drowning, your family was already coming toward the lake. The two remained silent for a moment, processing the information. How had people known that Tommy was in danger? There's one more thing, said Tommy, his voice low as if he were telling a secret. My dad told me that last night after we got home. He was visited by Mr. Wilson. They talked for hours in the kitchen and I heard some things. What kind of things? They talked about your family, about things that happened in the past. Mr. Wilson said your return to the lake might mean that time was completing itself. I didn't really understand, but they seemed worried. Emily put the medallion in her shirt pocket. The feeling that her life was about to change drastically grew with each moment. "Tommy, do you want to help me discover the truth about what happened to my parents?" "Of course I do. But how?" "First, let's talk to you, your dad and Mr. Wilson. If they know something about my family, they need to tell me." Emily looked at the lake where the mist was beginning to dissipate with the rising sun. "And then we'll find out where that horse came from." As they walked back to the village, neither of them noticed that they were being watched. Among the trees on the opposite shore of the lake, a solitary figure followed their movements. It was a middle-aged man, with worn clothes and eyes that revealed years of waiting. In his hands, he held an old map, yellowed by time, with handwritten notes and detailed drawings of the bottom of the lake. When the children disappeared on the trail leading to the village, the man emerged from his hiding place and approached the shore where Emily had found the medallion. He knelt in the mud and touched the horse's footprints with reverence, as if touching something sacred. "After so long," he murmured to himself, "finally returned." In the village, news of Tommy's miraculous rescue had already spread like wildfire. Groups of people gathered at the doors of houses, discussing in low voices the mysterious appearance of the white horse. Some remembered old stories told by the elders about a horse that appeared in times of danger. Grandma Martha was in the kitchen preparing coffee when Emily arrived. The older woman immediately noticed the agitation on the girl's face. "Where did you go so early, child?" "To the lake, Grandma." "And I found this." Emily showed the medallion, carefully observing Grandma Martha's reaction. The woman dropped the cup she was holding, which shattered on the wooden floor. Her hands trembled when she took the medallion, and Emily saw tears spring to her eyes. "Where did you find this?" "On the shore of the lake, near the horse's footprints." Emily knelt beside Grandma Martha and held her hands. "Grandma, I need to know the truth, the whole truth." Grandma Martha breathed deeply, as if gathering courage to reveal secrets kept for more than a decade. "This medallion belonged to your mother, Claire. It was a family heirloom passed down from generation to generation. Your mother never took it off her neck." She touched the metal carefully. "If it's here, after all these years, what does it mean?" "It means that perhaps your parents aren't lost forever, child. Perhaps there's still hope." Grandma Martha's words echoed in Emily's mind like distant bells. Hope. A word she had learned not to use, growing up believing her parents had left never to return. Now, holding the warm medallion in her hands, she felt as if a door that had been closed for 12 years was slowly beginning to open. Outside, the sun was rising completely, bathing the village of Willow Creek with a golden light that made the dewdrops sparkle like small diamonds. And in the distant lake, though no one could see, a white horse remained motionless on the shore, like a silent guardian, waiting for the right time to reveal its secrets. Mr. Wilson's house was in the oldest part of the village, where the wooden buildings seemed to have naturally sprouted from the red earth. It was a Saturday morning, and the elder was sitting on the porch, carving a piece of wood with the patience of someone who has all the time in the world. When he saw Emily and Tommy approaching, his experienced eyes immediately captured the determination on the girl's face. "Good morning, Mr. Wilson," greeted Emily, her voice firm despite the nervousness she felt. "Good morning, child. Tommy." The old man continued his manual work, but Emily noticed that he was attentive to every movement of the two. "I came here because I need to know about my parents and about the white horse." Mr. Wilson stopped carving and looked up at her. For a long moment, only the sound of birds and the distant murmur of the lake broke the silence. "Come in, child. The time has come for you to know some things." The interior of the house smelled of old wood and dried herbs. The walls were covered with old photographs of the village, and on a table in the corner, Emily noticed maps and scattered papers. Mr. Wilson served fresh water in an aluminum cup and sat in a rocking chair that creaked with each movement. "Your parents, Michael and Claire, were special people," he began, his deep voice laden with memories, not only for the love they had for each other, but for something they carried in their blood. A connection with this place that comes from far back, from before this village even existed. Emily showed him the medallion, and she saw the old man's eyes widen. My God, he murmured, taking the object with reverent care. I haven't seen this in 12 years. This medallion tells a story, child. A story that your family has guarded for generations. What story? Mr. Wilson got up and went to an old chest in the corner of the room. From it, he removed a cloth bundle that looked very old. When he opened it, he revealed a series of objects. More similar medals, polished stones with engraved symbols, and a hand-drawn map on yellowed paper. More than 100 years ago, before the village of Willow Creek existed, this place was inhabited by ancient people. They lived in harmony with the waters, knew their secrets, understood their changes. He pointed to the map. When the violent rains came about 80 years ago, the entire village was covered by the waters of the lake. But before that happened, some managed to escape. Tommy moved closer to get a better look at the map. You mean there's an entire city under the lake? Not just a city, boy, a treasure of knowledge, sacred objects, ancient writings, secrets about how to live in peace with nature. Mr. Wilson touched one of the engraved stones. Your ancestors, Emily, were the guardians of this knowledge. Each generation, a member of the family was chosen to protect the secrets and ensure they never fell into the wrong hands. And my parents. Were they guardians? Your father Michael discovered something important at the bottom of the lake. For years he dove in secret, exploring the underwater ruins. He found a special chamber, a place where the ancient guardians hid their most precious treasures. The old man paused, his face somber. But someone else found out about the discovery. Emily felt a chill in her stomach. Who? Men from outside the village, people who wanted to turn ancient knowledge into money, sell the relics to rich collectors. Mr. Wilson shook his head sadly. On the night of the storm, they came after your parents. Michael and Claire fled to the lake, taking Thunder. I believe they tried to permanently hide the entrance to the secret chamber. And then? What happened to them? That's the part no one knows for sure. The storm was terrible, the worst we've ever seen. When dawn came, there was no sign of your parents or the men who were chasing them. Only you alone at home, and Thunder... Well, Thunder disappeared too. Emily held the medallion tightly, feeling it warm in her hands. But if Thunder is alive, if he really saved Tommy yesterday, then it's possible your parents are alive too, child. Perhaps trapped somewhere, perhaps hiding, waiting for the right moment to return. Hope blossomed in Emily's chest, like a plant finally receiving water after a long drought. Throughout her life, she had felt incomplete, as if an essential part of her existence was missing. Now, for the first time, there was a real possibility of reuniting with those who had given her life. Mr. Wilson, can you teach me to dive in the lake? I want to look for this secret chamber. The old man was silent for a long moment, weighing his words carefully. It's dangerous, child. The lake has its own rules, its own dangers. And if the men who were chasing your parents are still out there, I'll... Go with her, said Tommy, his voice firm despite his young age. After all, the horse saved me too. I think that means something. Mr. Wilson studied the two young people, seeing in them the same determination he had seen in Emily's parents 12 years before. Very well. But we do this right. First, you're going to learn about the lake, about the dangers, about how to move underwater, and mainly, he picked up one of the engraved stones, you're going to learn about the symbols of the ancient guardians. During the following weeks, Emily and Tommy became dedicated students. Mr. Wilson taught them to interpret the ancient maps, to recognize the sacred symbols, and, most importantly, to dive safely in the deep waters of the lake. Emily discovered she had a natural talent for staying underwater, as if her lungs were made for that environment. At night, the dreams intensified. She clearly saw the submerged city, with its streets covered in algae and houses that seemed to sleep an eternal sleep. And always, in the dreams, she heard voices calling her name, familiar voices that made her heart race. Grandma Martha observed the changes in the girl with a mixture of pride and concern. She knew she couldn't stop Emily from seeking the truth about her origin, but she feared that she would find more pain than answers. It was on an especially hot afternoon that the unexpected happened. Emily was practicing diving in a shallower part of the lake when she felt something brush against her leg. It wasn't a fish or an aquatic plant. It was a rope. Following the rope with her hands, she discovered that it was tied to a partially submerged wooden structure. With her heart racing, she dove deeper and found the remains of a small vessel, still partially intact after all those years. When she emerged to breathe, Tommy was waiting anxiously on the shore. "Did you find something?" "A boat," she said, still panting. "I think it's my parents' boat." Together they explored the wreckage. Inside the vessel, protected by a waterproof box, they found notebooks with Michael's notes, detailed maps of the bottom of the lake, and a letter addressed to Emily. With trembling hands, she opened the envelope. Her mother's handwriting, which she knew only from recipes kept by Grandma Martha, jumped from the paper like an embrace from the past. "My dear daughter, if you are reading this letter, it means the time has come for you to discover who you really are. The secrets we guard are not only ours, they belong to an entire civilization that entrusted our family with the responsibility of protecting their knowledge. The medallion that you will certainly find will lead you to us. Follow Thunder. He knows the way. With all our love, Mum and Dad." Tears ran down Emily's face as she read and reread the words. Her parents were alive. Somewhere, they were waiting for her. That night, she could hardly sleep. She stayed on the porch looking at the lake, which shone silver under the light of the full moon. And then, as if it had been called by her thoughts, thunder appeared on the distant shore. The white horse remained motionless for a few minutes, then began to move slowly along the shore, constantly looking back as if it wanted her to follow. Emily dressed quickly and left the house without making a sound. Her heart beat strongly as she walked along the dark trail toward the lake. When she reached the shore, Thunder was waiting for her, majestic and serene. "You came to get me, didn't you?" she whispered, approaching slowly. The horse allowed her to touch its neck, and Emily felt an immediate connection, as if recognizing an old friend. On the animal's neck, she discovered a small leather pouch containing another map, this one showing an underwater entrance she had never seen before. The time had come. The journey that would change her life forever was about to begin, and this time she would not be alone. Thunder would guide her to her parents, to the answers she had been looking for all her life, to the destiny that had been written long before she was born. Dawn was painting the sky in rosy hues when Emily, Tommy, and Thunder arrived at the spot marked on the map. It was a hidden cove of the lake, protected by rocks and dense vegetation, a place where the water seemed more crystalline and the silence was absolute. The white horse had guided them throughout the early morning, stopping only when they reached that secret refuge. "Are you sure you want to do this?" asked Tommy, observing the calm surface of the water. Despite all the preparation of the last few weeks, the idea of diving in search of an underwater entrance still made him nervous. Emily touched the medallion she now wore around her neck, feeling its comforting energy. "I've never been so sure to have anything in my life." Following the instructions on the map found in Thunder's pouch, they located a specific rock formation underwater. It was necessary to dive about 10 feet to find an opening that, according to the drawing, would lead to a natural air chamber. Emily took a deep breath and dove first, followed by Tommy. The water was surprisingly warm at that spot, and the visibility was perfect. Emily saw the opening exactly where the map indicated, a crack in the rocks that seemed to have been molded by nature specifically to be a secret passage. She swam through the opening, feeling the water pressure gradually decrease. When she emerged, on the other side, she found herself in a spacious cavern, illuminated by natural light that came from openings in the rocky ceiling. The cavern was dry and cozy, with walls covered in crystals that reflected the light like small stars. But what most caught her attention were the human figures moving in the shadows. "Emily?" A familiar voice echoed through the cavern, laden with emotion and disbelief. A woman emerged from the shadows, followed by a man. Even after 12 years, Emily recognized them immediately from the photographs and from the dreams she had had. It was like looking into a mirror of the future. She saw her own features in the mature faces of her parents. "Mom, Dad?" Emily's voice came out as a choked whisper. Claire ran toward her daughter and hugged her tightly, as if wanting to make up for all the years of separation in a single moment. Michael joined the embrace, and for the first time in her life, Emily felt truly complete. "My sweet girl, how you've grown," said Claire, tears flowing freely down her face. "How many times we dreamed of this moment." "Are you okay? Why didn't you come home?" asked Emily, still unable to fully believe it wasn't a dream. Michael sighed deeply. "We couldn't return, sweetheart. The men who were chasing us were still in the region. We stayed here protecting the entrance to the sacred chamber, waiting until it was safe to return." It was then that Tommy emerged from the water, breathless and impressed with the cavern. Claire and Michael welcomed him warmly, recognizing in him the son of the fisherman Jack. "Thunder told us about you too," said Michael, smiling. "He has a special way of communicating with us. It was he who said the time had come for you to find us." "Thunder talked to you?" asked Tommy, amazed. "Not exactly talking," explained Claire, "but there's a special connection between our family and him. It's a link that comes from the ancient guardians, a form of communication that goes beyond words." Michael led them to a deeper part of the cavern, where they had built a simple but comfortable shelter. For 12 years they had lived there, leaving only occasionally to get supplies and always through Thunder, who served as their link to the outside world. "The sacred chamber is right over there," said Michael, pointing to a passage that led even deeper into the rock. "For all these years we've protected the treasures of the ancients, but now that you've arrived, Emily, the mission can finally be fulfilled." "What mission?" Claire took her daughter's hand. "The mission of returning the ancient knowledge to the world, but in the right way. Not to be sold or exploited, but to teach people how to live in harmony with nature, as our ancestors did." The family walked together to the sacred chamber. It was a circular space carved into the living rock, with walls covered in ancient symbols and natural shelves where objects of inestimable value rested. Ceramic vessels with complex designs, polished stone tools, manuscripts on plant material that had resisted time, and in the center of the chamber, a natural spring where water flowed crystalline from the rock. "This water has special properties," explained Michael. "The ancients believed it connected all living beings in the region. That's why Thunder and our family have this special bond, because our ancestors drank from this spring for generations." Emily approached the spring and touched the water with her fingertips. Immediately she felt an energy course through her body, as if thousands of ancestral memories awakened in her mind. She saw flashes of the ancient civilization, people working in harmony with nature, ceremonies around the lake, children playing with wild animals that lived without fear of humans. "It's amazing," she murmured. "I can feel everything, the whole history of this place." "That's the heritage you carry in your blood," said Claire proudly, "and now it's time to decide what to do with it." For hours, her parents told Emily and Tommy about the years they had spent in hiding, about how they had managed to survive in the cavern, about the knowledge they had learned by studying the ancient artifacts. They also explained about the men who had pursued them, dishonest archaeologists who wanted to loot the archaeological site to sell it on the black market. "But they gave up after a few years," said Michael. "They believed we had perished in the storm. Now it's safe for us to return home." "So you're coming back to the village?" asked Tommy hopefully. Claire and Michael exchanged glances. "We want to return, but there's one condition," said Claire. "The ancient treasures can't stay here forever. They need to be taken to a place where they can be properly studied, where the knowledge can be shared with the world." "I know exactly the place," said Emily, her eyes shining with emotion. "The State University in the capital has an archaeology department. Professor Harrison, who has come to our village several times to study the lake fauna, always said our region had archaeological potential." Michael smiled. "That's an excellent idea. We can contact this university, do everything legally and correctly." When they left the cavern, the sun was already high in the sky. Thunder was waiting for them on the shore, and for the first time in 12 years, the family was reunited. The white horse allowed them all to touch him, whinnying softly as if he too was happy with the reunion. The walk back to the village was like a dream. Emily between her parents, Tommy beside them, and Thunder following them majestically. Wenoir. They arrived at the first houses of Willow Creek. A commotion formed. People couldn't believe what they were seeing. Michael and Claire, who had disappeared 12 years ago, walking down the main street as if they had returned from a long trip. Grandma. Martha was in the yard when she saw the procession approaching. The older woman stood motionless for a moment, then ran toward them with an agility she hadn't shown in years. "My son! My Claire!" she cried, hugging them both tightly. "I knew you would come back. I always knew." The celebrations lasted for days. The entire village mobilized to welcome back their lost children. Stories were told, tears of joy were shed, and for the first time in many years, Willow Creek vibrated with true happiness. Professor Harrison arrived from the capital a week later, bringing with him a team of archaeologists and historians. When he saw the treasures from the sacred chamber, he couldn't contain his emotion. "It's the most important archaeological discovery of the century in the region," he said, carefully examining the artifacts. "These objects can change our understanding of pre-colonial civilizations in America. More important than the scientific discovery, however, was the impact on the community. The ancient knowledge about sustainable agriculture, natural medicine, and harmonious coexistence with the environment began to be applied in the village. The lake, once feared by many, became a symbol of wisdom and renewal. Emily, now with a complete family and a clear purpose in life, dedicated herself to studying and preserving the ancestral knowledge. Tommy became her inseparable companion on this journey, and together they founded an environmental education center in the village. Thunder never disappeared again. He lived freely in the surroundings of the lake, but always close to the family he had protected for so long. The children of the village learned to respect him and to see him as a special guardian, a bridge between past and present. On hot afternoons, when the sun gilded the waters of the lake, it was common to see Emily sitting on the shore quietly talking with Thunder, planning the next archaeological expeditions, or simply enjoying the peace that had finally come to her life. The discovery of the ancient treasures brought international recognition to Willow Creek. Researchers from all over the world came to study the archaeological site, but always following strict protocols established by the community itself to preserve the integrity of the place. And so, what began as a suffocating afternoon where a white horse saved a child transformed into a journey of discovery, reunion, and renewal. Emily had found not only her parents, but also her identity, her purpose, and her place in the world. The lake continued to guard its secrets, but now they were secrets shared with love and wisdom, perpetuating the legacy of the ancient guardians for future generations. The end. Dear listeners, we hope that the story of Emily, Thunder, and the mystery of the lake has deeply touched your hearts. Like the courage of a girl in search of her origins, sometimes we need to dive into the deep waters of our own lives to find the treasures we seek. If this narrative moved you as much as it moved us in telling it, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more stories that explore the mysteries of the human heart and the magic that exists in the most unexpected connections. Leave your like if you believe, just like Emily, that we should never give up searching for those we love. In the comments, tell us, what family secrets would you like to unravel? What mysteries from the past awaken your curiosity? We're eager to read your stories and continue this emotional journey together.